We can also use CSS to be able to change something like the font that we use in order to display text. Modern web pages don't show everything in the exact same font. Usually, some designer is choosing what font they want for any particular web page. So let's experiment with those possibilities. I'll now create a new file that I'll call font.html, inside of which will be an HTML page called font. And inside the body, I'll again just have a div that says hello world, same as before. But now, inside of the style tag here, up in the head section of my web page, I would like to add some font information to this div. And in particular, there are a number of different font-related CSS properties that I can add to control the font of any particular HTML element. One thing I can specify is the font family, specifying what font would I like to use in order to display this text. And maybe I want to display it in Arial, for example, which is a common font used on the internet, such that now if I open up font.html, I now see in Arial the words hello world. Different from the text that I was using before. You can also specify multiple different fonts. Not all computers support all fonts. So I could specify that just in case Arial isn't supported, fall back to any sans serif font, any of the fonts that don't have the little glyphs at the edge of each of the characters. So now, if I refresh the page, because my web browser supports Arial, I don't notice anything different. But you might imagine if you're using more complex fonts that not all web browsers have or support, you might add some backups just in case the font you want isn't actually available. In addition to a font family, I might also specify a font size, how big I want the font to be inside of this div. So I can specify that I'd like the font size of this GIF to be, 28 pixels, for example, such that now I refresh it. And now, this div appears using larger text. And I can also, just as like text editors let you specify whether you want it to be normal text or bolded text. I can specify a font weight for this div, and say that in addition to being in font Arial and size 28, I would also like for the font to be bold, such that now I refresh it, and now the font shows up as bold. And using these CSS style sheets, we're able to selectively apply the styling to only particular parts of the web page. If I have another underneath this div some more text down here, for example, that additional text that's outside of the div isn't going to be affected by the CSS styling. Such that now if I refresh this page, or some more text shows up in that same standard default font provided by my web browser, and not the custom font that I have specified to apply to only this particular part of the HTML page. So that now is the ability to add fonts to our page too. Another thing that we might want to do is to be able to add some sort of border around our HTML elements. So maybe I want a line to be able to separate this entire part of the page from another part of the page. So I could add a border by going to this div and saying, let me give this div a border. And maybe I want the border to be like a 3-pixel solid black border, for instance. I can specify how big I want the border to be. I can specify whether I want the border to be a solid line or a dashed or dotted line. And I can specify what color I would like that border to be as well. So now, when I refresh this, I now see I have a border around this entire section, around this entire div, inside of my web page. So, in the next video we will see how we can deal with border in tables. Thank you.